The activism of the 60s, as I mentioned, had a major civilizing effect on the society in all kinds of ways. And it aroused deep concern right across the mainstream spectrum. That's why the 60s are conventionally called the time of troubles. And it was troubles for the 1%. It civilized the country. That's dangerous. And the reaction was immediate, from right to what's called left, right across the spectrum. So I'll just keep to the universities for the moment. At the right, the most striking illustration of it was a very influential memorandum, which was written by Lewis Powell. He's a corporate lawyer, later appointed to the Supreme Court by Richard Nixon. It was secret, but it leaked. You can find it on the internet. It's worth looking at. At the other end of the spectrum, what's called the left, there was an important study by the Trilateral Commission. These are liberal internationalists from the three major state capitalist industrial systems of the United States, Europe, Japan. The general outlook of the group is given by the fact that they almost entirely staffed the Carter administration. That's where they come from. So that's the spectrum. And both of them merit attention. They provide a good insight into the ideological aspects of the assault on democracy, on rights, on schooling, that was beginning to take shape about 40 years ago, escalated sharply in the Reagan-Thatcher years, picked up by Clinton-Bush, now reaching new heights. And they also provide insight into why the assault targets the educational system. So let's start with Powell. This memo was 1971. It was sent to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the main business lobby, intended to be secret. The title was The Attack on the American Free Enterprise System. And it's worth reading not only for the contents, which are interesting, but for the paranoid tone, which is quite characteristic of business literature. Now, if you're the masters, you have a kind of totalitarian attitude, then if anything gets out of control, the world's coming to an end, So the rhetoric tends to be kind of inflated and paranoid. And that's true of the Powell Memorandum. He targeted particular criminals. The major ones were Ralph Nader with his consumer safety campaigns, Herbert Marcuse, who was preaching Marxism to the masses, if anybody ever heard of him, new leftists who were on the rampage all over, and of course their naive victims who he said dominate the universities, the schools, control TV and other media, control the educated community, and virtually control the government. If you think I'm exaggerating, I urge that you read it. I'm not. Their takeover of the country, he said, is a dire threat to freedom because the only alternatives to free enterprise are various kinds of bureaucratic regulation of individual freedom, ranging from moderate socialism to the iron heel of the leftists or rightist dictatorships. It's essentially the rhetoric of today's Republican debates, where the center-right administration of Obama is regularly called, Marxist revolutionary or something like that. And that's what it looks like if you're one of the masters, because it does slightly chip away at total domination.